All right, contact. That's not the choke, dummy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to HR Repair. This is Hey Ray. Today we're working on something just a little bit different. This is a air compressor that I have worked on in the past, back when I was at my other job years ago. It's been probably 8 years ago at least. So this is driven by a Wisconsin, I believe it is VG4D Wisconsin motor. This is a V4 Wisconsin. These things are hard to kill. They usually don't die. So yeah, it is a pretty good motor from its day. So this thing's been sitting for a while. Customer brought it in, and he states that this thing will run for a little bit and then die. So he wants me to go ahead and just get it back going. He's going to need it this fall. And so that's what we're going to do. I did go ahead and drain this water out of this oil bath air filter. I just checked it, and it was full of water. So I cleaned everything up, put more oil in it. So that's good to go. Now I'm assuming the battery's going to be dead because this thing hasn't been started in quite some time. So we'll get our jump pack on our battery. Let's see if this thing will start and see if we can figure out what's going on with this thing. Contact. All right, so before we just get started on this thing, let's go ahead and do a little review on this thing. So I don't know much about these Lindsay compressors, but I do know a little more about these Wisconsins. They were a good motor back in their day. They're still a good motor. They are not much of a speed demon, but they sure do hold up. They do work, which is what they were designed to do. Now, this thing, the compressor is directly mounted to the back of the motor. This is a piston type compressor. It is a 4-cylinder piston compressor. This thing is model number of 80HR, and I've honestly not done a whole lot of research on these things, so I couldn't tell you just a whole lot, but it does look like maybe it's a 1987 model, so maybe September of 87. I don't know that for sure. Somebody might be able to tell me more about this out there. But I do know that this was originally a local concrete company that bought this thing. I think he might have bought it new. They're no longer in business. But then the local plumbing company got a hold of it, and they used it some, but not much. As we can see on the oil filter down there, this was actually the last time I worked on it, which was actually 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago to the day. It's 1 month nearer to 10 years ago. So it had 7 hours on it then. It's got 19 on it now. So in 10 years, they used it a whole 12 hours. I believe back then I went ahead and put new gas in it. I don't remember for sure what all I did. I changed oil. I don't think, maybe spark plugs. I know I put a new unloader on it. And what else did I do? I don't remember. It's been a while. So we'll put you guys up here. We're going to see if we can get this thing started and see what it runs like. Now, he thought it was the carburetor, the float sticking in the carburetor. Now, you know, maybe bouncing across the road. Hopefully it unstuck that float in the carburetor. I don't know that for sure, but we're gonna go ahead and see what we can find. So in order to start this thing, we'll have to flip this up, and this basically is a compression release that releases the compression on the air compressor to allow for it to crank over a little easier. So I think it also unloads, yeah, might unload the servo or the pumping valve there as well. So let's just go ahead and see if we can hook up our battery charger jump pack and get this thing going. Now you might be asking, Ray, why are you working on it outside and not in the shop? Well, good question. Part of the reason is because I'm too lazy to try to get the thing inside, and I thought it might be just as easy to work on it out here, or at least figure out what's going on out here. So, you know, there's your answer. All right, so we've got our jump pack on. Flip this up in the start position. I like to open the valve. Had a little bit of air in it. Power switch on. Choke. And I do not want to start. Okay, might need a little sniff of the good stuff. So let's see if that's the case here. Might need to turn my jump pack back on. It's a beautiful day out here. It's about 70 degrees. Little backfire, and I got a little brake fluid in my face. Brake clean. Make it again go. Hey! It does have a sticking float. Warm up a little bit before we engage it. Let it charge up the battery. We can see this is our air pressure, which is 0 right now, which we would expect. It's charging. Sit here and let it run for a little bit. Actually runs pretty good. Cooling fan. Keep housing doors open. Toolbox covered and closed. But this cover needs to be closed for obvious reasons. Shall we see if it pumps? little bit, let it pump like this. This is what they call a single stage air compressor, so this air compressor should not pump above about 110 psi. Because, and what they mean by a single stage air compressor is that the first stage usually is a big piston that pumps low pressure through a cooler and into the high pressure, which then is a small piston that can pump up higher. So we don't want this one to go over a 110 or 120. Too high. You can see it kicks off a little over 120. Too high still. I'm okay with it being at 120. Okay. So it should idle down. Which it does not do. So we may need to be doing a carburetor on this one, huh? See if my jump pack still has anything left in it. Hot! So no idle out of this thing, which means our idle passage is not working on the carburetor. So we might just go ahead and pull this carburetor off and we'll do a cleaning on it. And it should be fairly easy to do, I would believe. For that, let's move her inside. I thought maybe we could get away from that, but yeah, we're not. I'm too lazy. I'm not pulling all my tools out here. We're back. Got the carburetor pulled off. I mean, it's very simple. Just 2 bolts and unhook the linkages. It comes right off. So didn't feel like you guys would want to be bored with that. So let's get this thing pulled apart and we'll get this thing cleaned out and it should run much better. Yeah, I can definitely smell old varnished up gas. Customer stated that he put new gas in it, but he wasn't sure what it looked like, what the stuff looked like in here. I think we're about to find out. Probably. I mean, it could be better. It could also be a lot worse. Alright, so yeah, our needle is definitely sticking in there, so we'll get this pulled apart here. See if I can remove this main jet here. Yeah, it's all varnished up. As you guys can hopefully see, it's not as bad as we've seen already, but it's dirty. So we're gonna go ahead, take everything apart, soak it in some Chem Dip, Berryman Chem Dip carburetor parts cleaner. This will get it all cleaned up, and we'll wash the thing, put it back together, and we should be good to go. So we'll be back in about 30 minutes when this thing is done soaking. All right, so literally 30 minutes in the Berryman's Chem Dip carburetor parts cleaner. take it out and wash it off with water. Do not use other chemicals. Just use water. And this thing literally looks like a brand new carburetor. I've never seen this be a problem with this carburetor cleaner. It just works. So I will in this, so we will just reassemble everything and we should be good to go. You can use a blowgun to blow out the passages, make sure that all the water's out of there. Clean up some of the loose debris. So I'm going to reassemble this thing and I'll be back when I get it done. Okay, we're going to see if this thing starts. And just FYI, I did check the engine oil, so we're good there. Choke is functioning. I guess that's functioning. And start position. Open the valve. Shouldn't necessarily have to, but I'm going to. All right, contact. That's not the choke, dummy. All right, so. Contact. Contact. Will it idle? It idles. I need a little bit of adjustment. Whoa! Massive fuel leak. I got a little too excited. Oh, I forgot to tighten my line coming up to the carburetor. And we were just pouring fuel down across the motor. You know, just sitting over here watching airplanes fly. All right, let's try this again. Shouldn't have to choke it. These things are usually not very warm-blooded. Should maybe open the window or doors. Lots of smoke. Does anybody know anything about these Lindsay compressors? I might have to educate myself. Now that I'm talking about them, I'm nosy. I want to know. So there it is. It's running like a top, like a Wisconsin always does when things are right. I actually enjoy these things. So this may or may not be interesting to you. I'm going to explain a little bit of how an air system works. Then I'll talk about where I learned how to work on these. So if you don't like this part of it and it's boring to you, you can skip ahead. I don't care. Not going to offend me anything at all. But I thought you might want to know a little bit of where I came from. So my first job at the age of 16 was as a diesel mechanic for an Amish guy. And also he did, since it was Amish back in the early 2000s, it was right at 2000. I turned 16 in 2000, and I think I started working for him the December of 2000, the year 2000. So it was literally the year 2000. And back then, the Amish were not allowed to have electricity of any kind. Now they can produce their own electricity. They can have it to a certain extent. There's a whole thing with that in this area right now, which I'm not even going to get into. And also, I will tell you that I grew up Amish. Therefore, I know a little bit of how the Amish operate and how they work. My grandma and grandpa on both sides of my family are still Amish. I have a lot of Amish cousins. a lot of Amish aunts and uncles. And so, yeah. Also, if I talk a little funny, that's probably why. It's my Amish accent coming out. I try to hide it as much as possible, but it doesn't always work. And couple that along with a little bit of being camera shy, you know, it just kind of befuddles me. Whatever. Anyway, so through that, I worked for him for 4.5 years. Then I went to a lawn and garden shop, worked there for a while, went back into that. Then I had an accident in 2005 where I was basically unable to be up on my feet. I broke both of my ankles along with a bunch of other things. And for 8 years I worked at a feed mill, but I would always tinker with things after hours and never got away from being a mechanic. So after 8 years, I thought, meh, I've never given it up, and now I can walk again, so why don't I go back into being a diesel mechanic? So at this point, the place that I worked at had sold, and there was another Amish guy that owned it. And then I became the road guy. I drove around in a service truck working on diesels, air compressors, and hydraulic systems. So I got to know air systems really well. They used a lot of these unloaders to run their air compressors. We worked on the Sullivan Palatech screw air compressors. They used this same type of system along with a bunch of other check valves, and there's a whole thing on that. I took my schooling, my diesel engine schooling, through John Deere the second time around. I did, I think, 33 classes through John Deere University. Learned a lot of stuff from there. Went through Sullivan Palatech and their school. Learned a lot about air compressors, which I knew a lot of them from experience and just from learning as you go previously. So that's why these air compressors make sense to me, and that's where I got my experience. So enough of that, I guess. Hopefully that didn't bore you guys to tears, but because of that, I'm going to try to explain to you a little bit of how these things work. So what we have here, we have an unloader, and this is what I call an unloader. This part of the unloader is the mounting part of it. If you want to mount the thing onto a bracket, you'll put I believe it's a 5/16 SAE bolt into here. You can screw it into there, mount it to a mounting bracket. This is where your air comes out. It comes in here. This is teed off to come over and provide air to the air gauge, pressure gauge. But it comes in through here. There's a spring-loaded valve inside here that will, once it comes up high enough, it trips, puts air out through here, supplies air to our idle valve, comes on over, and applies air to our unloaders on top of the heads. So it will basically pass through this one, through this one, through this one, and that creates an unloaded intake valve to where it will not build any more pressure. So at the same time, it can idle the engine down, so because it applies air to this side. Now to adjust these, you should never really adjust this part right here. Now I did earlier adjust that a little bit because I thought it looked like it might have been moved out a little bit. Some people will try to play with this a little bit to adjust the pressure differential. So a pressure differential on these is usually 15 pounds, and which means that it will kick off the air compressor at 120 psi and then kick it back on at 105 psi. This is normal from the factory. That's how they usually do it. Now you can adjust the pressure, the high pressure cutoff, by loosening this jam nut right here, and as you turn this down, screw it in righty-tighty, screw it down. That creates more tension on the spring, which creates a higher pressure on your higher side. It will also create but at the same time, that pressure differential will stay the same. So, you know, you can kick it off at 150 psi, and then it will still kick back on at 135. It is very hard to adjust these to have a larger pressure differential, but people will try it. It doesn't really work. Yeah, so we'll that's a little down and dirty on those. Hopefully that was helpful for you, and maybe you can now fix your own. I don't know, but just a little down and dirty lesson on how air unloaders work. Now, earlier I made mention of a single stage versus dual stage air compressor. A single stage air compressor usually does not generally pump over 100, and actually I think they say the highest pressure they want is 100 psi. Now there are some that are different, but the Quincy's that we worked on were often that way. As you can see, this one has cylinders that are all the same size. Actually, maybe a good analogy would be the shop air compressor. That one, yeah. If you can see up there, that one is a two-stage air compressor. See the size difference between the two cylinders? The one on the right with the air filter coming off of it, that is a low-pressure cylinder, which then pumps through coils and into the high-pressure cylinder, which creates, we can actually pump up to, I believe, 175, maybe even some of them will go up to 250 psi. I've seen some Quincy's in natural gas operations where they'll pump in natural gas and they use the air to start the engines. I've seen that one as high as 300 pounds. So they will pump a good little bit of pressure. But yeah. So you do want to be mindful of that. If it's a single stage compressor, you better check with the manufacturer to see what the pressure is, maximum pressure is. So there you go. A little history about me and a little education on air systems. If I didn't bore you to tears, I do want to thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I want you guys to have yourselves a wonderful day. And above all, don't forget to enjoy life and have fun. Have a great day. I will catch you all later. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.